Good evening and welcome to the May 21st, 2020 meeting of the Grafton, Mass. Disability Commission. I'm Roger Trahan, Chair of the Commission, and I call this meeting to order. As a preliminary matter, please permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Christy Proctor.
Here.
Daryl Reining.
Here.
Catherine Dorr.
Here.
Melissa Lackey.
Here.
Bob Perla.
Here.
And Donna Stock, just to make sure if I don't hear her, she's not yet logged in. Anticipated speakers on the agenda, please respond in the affirmative. Bob Berger.
Here.
And Jen Anderson. Not yet. She's after you on the agenda, so I anticipate she'll log in soon. And this open meeting of Grafton Disability Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of the public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted to the town's website, www.grafton-ma.gov, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. I'll pause here for a second and give a wave to make sure that Bob DeToma is recording this in the studio. I told him I'd give him a wave. So continuing, ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. However, this meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Grafton Disability Commission is convening by video conference via Zoom, as reflected on our agenda, which is posted on our commission's webpage on the town website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording. And I see Donna Stock joined in. Can you hear me? You present?
Yes.
Okay. All supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the town's website, unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. Regarding public comment, after members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment as follows. The chair will first read public comments and questions received in advance of the meeting, followed by real-time board and/or applicant responses. As a matter of clarification, we did not receive any advance public comments. Public comments during the meeting will be conducted through the chat feature in Zoom, and the chair will read real-time comments and questions typed by computer participants in the chat feature, followed by real-time board and applicant responses. And that term applicant wasn't necessary. It's probably more planning board and stuff. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call. Okay. So moving on to the first agenda item.
Chairman,
Yes, Daryl.
I just want people to also know that anything they type in is also part of the record that will be attached to the meeting. So all comments are part of the record.
Okay. Thank you, Daryl.
Yeah.
All right. So first item on the agenda, announcements, updates, volunteer opportunities. I'll try to keep this quick. I took the liberty to combine COVID-19 update, community emergency response team, medical reserve corps, MRC, and Board of Health are kind of one item. Regarding coronavirus, I wanted to at least note that we're in unique times, and as such, I'm going to try finding as much out about this medical condition as possible. And in my opinion, the extent that we can help in any way possible to keep people from falling ill or becoming functionally impaired due to this illness, that doesn't only kill people, but it can make people functionally impaired, I'm going to do. And to that end, starting today, there's a program available through Johns Hopkins University, and I know I forwarded that to Catherine. Did you receive that, Catherine?
Yeah, I just opened it actually.
Yep.
I'll be looking into doing that too. So
it's a 5-hour online contact tracing training, and it's not for credit or anything like that, but it's free of charge. And I'll have to get that link out to the community. As of today, there were over 200,000 people that had signed up for that across the country. So I think it could be useful for all of us. As far as CERT and MRC, they're looking for volunteers, and the Community Emergency Response Team, CERT, educates volunteers about disaster preparedness for hazards and such, and I'm told is mostly geared towards shelter, providing shelter and such. And Pam Reardon, Director of Community Emergency Response Team, can be reached at Pam Reardon, PAMRIORDAN, at outlook.com. They're always looking for volunteers, even if you don't have medical or disaster background. People who can be used to make phone calls and set things up are always needed. So you can be a person without a background in medicine or emergency preparedness to do that. But the same goes for Medical Reserve Corps, MRC. That's a network of volunteers at Greater Grafton is currently, I believe, 13 towns. And it's about 1,000 community-based units and 200,000 volunteers throughout the U.S. They are also looking for volunteers, and you can go to www.maresponse.org or contact Marianne DeVries, our local unit leader, at DeVries M, that's DEVRIESM, at grafton-ma.gov. And that last item on announcements, Board of Health, the CERT, MRC, and Board of Health, you may recall in January, I had attended, it was a practice drill. And moving forward in reality, if there is any mass vaccination, it would likely, I'm told in a conversation with Marianne this week, be done at the local level in coordination, MRC, CERT, Board of Health. And so all of those organizations are in need of volunteers. One of the things that a number of us in the community had spoken of is the behavioral health, substance abuse, what have you, fallout of the coronavirus regarding anxiety, depression, and other issues regarding layoffs and social isolation. And I'm wondering, Catherine, I had emailed you. Catherine, do you want to speak to some of that? I know that that was an area of interest.
well, I do have the CDC's website up actually on there. Coping with stress and how everyone reacts differently, and they do have information, and they also have the disaster distress helpline available, and the number for that is 1-800-985-4444. 5990. And that is run by SAMHSA, which is the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Administration. And they are there for anyone who does need any help and needs resources, and they can help connect you with resources if you need anything.
And I'll thank you, Catherine. And I'll mention that there are probably a ton of resources out there, certainly that are already aware of this and in anticipating these issues. In the near future, and not so much at this meeting, I think we have a huge opportunity to be able to really load our webpage for Disability Commission with these types of resources. So I simply wanted to touch base on that, and that could probably be also considered new business as well as a future agenda item. Anyone else wish to weigh in on agenda item 1?
I was just trying to quickly look up just local numbers that as a clinician in Shrewsbury that we all need to have them on our emails right now, but I cannot find it quickly.
Okay.
So,
All right.
and I'll put them in our notes because definitely parents try to get a hold of people for lots of different reasons. So these are all local resources to call that we advise parents to call.
That would be great. And this is affecting people of all ages and backgrounds. And so, and I think we're in it for the long term. And so anything we can do to sort of get ahead of this and be proactive and offer as many resources to community members as possible and then advertise them on all available media would be awesome. So I'll be reaching out for help from anyone that is ready, willing, and able to offer that.
Can I just ask Catherine a question?
Yes.
Sure.
So that phone number that you gave, the 1-800, that reaches what?
The disaster distress helpline, that is through the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Administration.
What's the first word? Factor?
Let me see. Disaster, I think.
Oh, disaster.
Disaster, yeah.
Disaster health.
Disaster distress helpline.
Okay.
And a lot of mental health providers are doing telehealth and video right now. And I know that Mass Health has approved that right now.
Yeah.
So anyone who is on the Mass Health system can look into doing video or audio therapy if they do need to. So.
All right. Thank you. Jen Anderson, I promoted you from plain old community member to participant. There was a link issue. Jen, are you there?
I am, yes.
I know we're not to your agenda item, but I figured I'd drag you over. So.
Yeah, nope. Pop me in when you're ready.
All right. All right. Thank you for everyone's input. Public comments received. That was just a placeholder. There were no comments received.
Roger,
Yes.
I'm just wondering whether or not we should move to the agenda item that include the guests that are on.
Yeah, we are. In other words, the self-eval and transition plan is Mr. Berger next. Is that you, Donna?
Yes.
Yes, it was.
All right. Yes. In other words, the next item on the agenda is Mr. Berger. And that's the Grafton ADA self-eval and transition plan, or so-called report. And he's item 3A on the agenda. Mr. Berger, who's inspector of buildings here in Grafton, as well as the ADA compliance officer. The agenda item reads an update on efforts to implement the ADA report's recommendations, and any items contained within the report that have been successfully operationalized or conversely are now moot due to changes since the report was published. Mr. Berger, welcome.
Thank you. Hi.
Did you get to read the this version of War and Peace? It's probably about 140 pages.
Yeah, I have skimmed through it over the past month or so.
Could you do me a favor, Bob, and maybe even speak closer into the mic or a little louder? I know I, for one, was having a little bit of difficulty hearing you.
Okay, I
Right.
have reviewed it, and it's a lot to digest.
I would agree. This particular agenda item, we recognize that we were getting in the weeds. It is a ton to digest, and it's in a Word format, and we have yet to tackle getting this in a more usable Excel format. I think based on the priorities and the cost and the time frame columns, that even if we had digested that, the way to tackle it also includes having a proper format. What we had also discussed in our prior meetings was whether or not these things were accurately depicted as, for example, something that was able to be addressed by town staff and not really cost anything to contract out, or conversely, something that may be in the report that says we have the ability to do it, maybe with staff, but maybe we don't. But the same goes for cost. These were estimates, and so there's a minimum and a maximum. So those are some of my comments regarding our prior meetings. Daryl,
What?
I thought you would raise your hand.
Nope.
Oh.
I did. My daughter was trying to say something to me.
All right, raising your hand in Zoom means you want to speak.
Sorry.
All right. And then some of this, and I don't want to jump into the middle because some of this also overlaps our next agenda item with Jen Anderson regarding the 40-page recreational piece. So let me ask you this. Did you have any general thoughts about this particular report or these type of reports, and how doable they are, and how people may wish to best tackle them?
Well, what I suggest is your committee review this report and then make recommendations on what we should tackle.
Right.
I think that, I don't know if that's your charge or not.
It is.
Okay, so that's the first thing that I would do, is I would try to first organize the report into a manageable document, because right now it's all over the place.
Right.
And then once you do that, then you can start prioritizing.
And one of the funny things about it is that funny tragic is that money does not grow on trees, and it would be nice to tackle things by priority. But some of the high priority items were the most expensive ones, and considering we're in a place now that we weren't in just 4 months ago, it would be a great wish list to tackle a lot of those priority one items that basically have not, at least thus far, been budgeted. So any of the commission members have any comments regarding priority versus cost, or any other
Yeah, I
breakdown?
mean, I thought, I know it's been a little while, so we're a little rusty, but I thought we were going to tackle this report according to categories, and we were going to start with the low to no cost items first.
Mhm.
And then I think that what we need really, and why we wanted to talk to you, Bob, was because after reading this list, we weren't sure if there were any things that you have already tackled that we don't even have to look at, that just jumped right off the page to you. Because there's so many little teeny tiny things. And I think that we would also want to obviously present those priorities to each department, and you, Bob, to get your feedback.
So with that being said, I have started working on hallway obstructions. That's a low hanging fruit. I started working on pricing on changing door handles.
Okay,
That's really not a low hanging fruit, but it was an
No.
easy item to get a price on, and it's not cheap. It's about $400 per door handle. We have a lock system that we have to maintain, so we have products that have to match the hardware for our lock system. That's why that price seems kind of high.
yep,
I'm also looking at our handicap ramp, which is not a ramp by the elevator. And that is, it's a little bit too steep. So I'm pursuing a variance on that to classify it as a sidewalk. Those are really the 3 or 4 items that I'm hitting just in my department.
okay. That's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Yeah, and I believe that was part of the one that we applied for and didn't get on the municipal ADA grant application that gave us a thumbs down in December. But I have yet to see anything in 2021 for grant applications, if they will even be funding things at all. So Bob, so hallways, door handles and locks, and then that particular ramp variance, what would be the anticipated time frame? So that would be through the Architectural Access Board?
Yeah, that would be through the Architectural Access Board. I've already asked DPW to give me a CAD drawing on that ramp because I first have to show them what's existing, and then I can ask them for the variance. So I'm kind of stuck on that piece right there for the back sidewalk.
Okay. Let me ask you this, Bob. Are you of the opinion that aside from our recommendations, and thank you, Daryl, for the reminder, it's been a couple of months since we've met, actually at the end of February, that we would tackle the low-hanging fruit. Are you saying, Bob, that it would best suit you to have this in a different format as well? Not to get hung up on semantics, but I found it to be a hard read, and in a PDF format, and even it was a hard read and couldn't be sorted. Who's the techie among us that can transfer either Word or PDF into Excel? I think there are programs out there. Anyone? Bueller?
Well, let me just say, we can have the town administrator try to reach out and get an updated report that is in an easier format that we can manipulate.
I actually requested that, Bob, and it's not available in Excel. It was a Word document that then they transferred into PDF, got delivered to us in PDF, and then I requested from Center for Living and Working the Word document. So right now, Excel never existed for this particular document.
Well, we can see if somebody has the capability of breaking into it and converting it. I don't know.
Okay.
All right, we'll follow up on that.
Okay. Do you want to, would be our next meeting be too soon, or maybe the meeting after that as a follow-up?
When's your next meeting?
We meet once a month. Typically our schedule had been the third Thursday of the month.
Yeah, why don't you put me back on the schedule and let's see what I can do for the committee.
Okay, great. All right.
Thanks.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Berger?
I actually have a comment.
All right. Yeah, Missy.
Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So just to circle back to the low hanging fruit comment, there are some things that we had discussed at previous meetings and that it's good that we have Jen here as well. Because some of our discussions surrounds the direct department as well, that some of the service related ADA compliance things were not addressed. Actually, I don't think any of the service related things were addressed by this report. Areas that we could add things in or make our community programming more accessible. And that's something that we had discussed bringing to the table when Mr. Berger came and when Jen came in terms of this report. Did anybody want to weigh in on that in terms of, like section 504? We haven't heard obviously from the school department yet in terms of their ADA compliance, but what I'm hearing is a lot of conversation and of course extremely important about physical compliance with ADA, but I think we also need to acknowledge that this report doesn't address abstract pieces of that requirement.
So let me, if I could just interrupt Missy for a second, and it's maybe a more high level question. As ADA compliance officer, Bob, is it been your experience that people either look upon you or the brunt of your day to day regarding compliance is physical structures, being inspector of buildings, or do you receive programming inquiries as well?
Well, first of all, as the building inspector, I don't look at ADA, I look at MAAB. I
Okay.
look at new construction and I look how it conforms to MAAB. When it comes to ADA, as the ADA coordinator in town, my job and responsibility is really for the employees of the town if they need accommodations to make sure that I present the accommodations to my higher up to see if they can afford to do those, not afford, but have those accommodations.
So
happen.
it's,
So
so
when
it's
it- when it
limited
comes
to
to-
employees
wait a
or?
Right, but when it comes to physical locations, like a field or a lake or a dock, that's really not in my jurisdiction. That's in the federal court's jurisdiction. But with this report, I'm looking at the report as a town employee trying to navigate this committee and other people through it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so here, Christy, we need to talk about our meeting with Tim because,
Yeah,
well, I
And
mean,
I didn't know whether you wanted to save that for new business or whether it's
it can
pertinent.
be new business. It can be new business. I mean, it relates because we talked about our charge and then numbers making some noise.
Is everyone muted? I hear a,
I think Bob is not, Perla is not muted.
oh, okay.
So anyway, we talked about also what the definition written in on the Disability Commission write-up on the state, the definition of what an ADA compliance officer is. So I feel like I feel like, Bob, that's a really big job for you because you are already employed doing other things that are related, but not exactly what the definition says an ADA compliance officer is supposed to do. So
I'm here to help and guide whatever committee needs me.
Okay.
I know, thank you.
No, and we all appreciate that because you're busy in your own right. Aside from this particular role, I think that for the most part, though, the matching you with this role sounds like it's more structural related than programming or service related. Am I correct? Like physical barriers and things like that?
Yes.
Okay.
and hi, Bob. My name's Christy. We've met before. I wanted to chat with you about the job description you have, as we see it here with ADA coordinator, according to the report from the Center for Working and Living, that you're monitoring a lot of compliance issues dealing with the town and the employees, the procedures. I'm just wondering how proactive you can be, knowing what your current workload is right now. And I'm concerned too that you're being asked to do an awful lot just with the ADA, let alone, MAAB. So we want to be able to be a resource for you and help you. I
Right.
think for what you've been doing, you have a better idea of what compliance issues have been coming forward the past few years. But we really want to help you out with policy and making things smoother and more efficient for you and for the workers of the town, as well as for private businesses. So if there's any way we can help with that, we'd be happy to.
Thank you. I will keep that in mind.
Can I just circle back to my question
Sure,
though,
Missy.
for a moment? So my concern overall is that in town, I mean, obviously not all disabilities are physical disabilities and are not addressed the same as physical disabilities. What can we do to ensure that there is a point person on the municipal level that can effectively address that component of ADA? And it's something we've discussed at
Rose.
meetings. What can we suggest? What can we advise? What can we do to further that?
Roger.
Yes.
I just want clarification. Are you talking about complaints that come in from citizens against businesses or structures? Is that what we're talking about out there?
Well,
I
let
wanna
me,
frame it that way.
Missy, hold on one second. What I'm doing to answer Bob's question, I am scrolling down to the form that one would fill out, and I don't have it memorized, and it's toward the end of the report, the appendix, that reasonable accommodations. Okay, let's say, okay, Town of Grafton requests for reasonable accommodation form, okay? And it's a 3-page form that's requested to return to the Grafton ADA coordinator. And it requests accommodations. And so those aren't necessarily, to Missy's point, physical limitations. One could be, due to, let's say, a cognitive issue, needing more time to perform their job, okay? For one of many examples. And then this came across your desk, and you're typically seeing requests for physical or ergonomic, let's say, accommodations. How would you address that as ADA coordinator?
Well, I have to take each case independently, and I look at them, I review them, and then I talk to our human resource officer, and we take it from there to see how we can handle each individual case at a time.
Okay.
And I get maybe 4 a year of I need accommodations.
Okay.
From town employees.
Okay. And are you seeing they're mostly physical in nature?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Just got a text from Daryl. She got booted and she's trying to get back in. If you could just hold on 1 second and oblige me, a text back to go back to the link from Joanne. And a shout out to Joanne Duncan for rescuing my ineptitude on these technical matters and running a Zoom meeting. So thank you for obliging me that interruption. I'm hoping that Daryl can get back in. And I'm noticing she's not. Can I put you on the spot in the meantime, Christy,
Yes, I'd be happy to.
take minutes? She read my mind. Yeah. So Christy's our go-to person when Daryl hasn't been available to take minutes. So thank you, Bob. So you're basically saying you get about 4 a year, and you take it on a case-by-case basis. So you're saying you would, depending on the situation, double back with human resources. Who would that be?
It would be the town administrator's office.
Okay. Okay. So
But
Tim,
I
we're
just
back
want,
on.
I want to elaborate a little more.
Okay.
I do get complaints from handicap advocates about businesses. And
Okay.
I do reach out to those businesses, and I explain what the violation is. and I ask for them to voluntarily comply.
Okay.
And I've had great success with that action.
All right. So is it more the structural stuff still, or would it be other types of accommodations?
Well, it's not accommodations. It's, let's say they restriped their parking lot and they didn't put their handicap signs back up, or they didn't
Okay.
put their hash marks back up.
Okay.
So Bob, we have a question for you about programs and services that are run by the town.
That was really my question too.
Right, so we were really thinking about how to make our town as accessible as possible. And we thought about it with several prisms. One being the prism of a event that's being hosted to make sure if anyone needs physical access or communication access with an interpreter, or an event that's being held that we provide assistive listening technology, that sort of thing. So, and the other piece is our accessibility on the website too. So those were some of the areas we wanted to tackle with you at some point.
And those are the areas that your committee is going to have to make recommendations to the town for. That's something that is out of my jurisdiction.
Okay.
But just elaborate a little more. When we put our studios in the municipal center, we did our best to make them handicap accessible. We put in assisted hearing in both studios, which we can't use right now, but eventually we'll be able to. Conference room A, conference room F. We have the proper signage. We have the doors that we have one door that opens. Both doors, well, one door is compliant. The other one, we still have work to do on. Whatever's in my jurisdiction, I do my best to make it comply when we're doing work on that facility. And the back door, I'm trying to get in the budget to put an automatic opener on that back door by that.
All right.
Well,
All right. Thank you. And thanks for your due diligence on these matters. So, again, as we ask questions, I mean, guess we will need to take a more proactive approach to making recommendations to the town versus always getting answers. In other words, we'll need to be more active in that respect, including the evaluation or areas where we see the need, to your point, Missy, to ramp up, service areas if we see that things, more people need access regarding programming that they feel they're not getting.
I think that we can be proactive in that. And I just want to say that what I was trying to say before is I wouldn't take it from the approach of a complaint against somebody. I think the way that I would interpret that, just to answer the question, how can we make the great programming and the things that we have in Grafton more accessible than they already are? Like we have, like Grafton celebrates the holidays. We've got a lot of really excellent things. Like maybe we can identify sensory friendly stops.
And I think to your point, Ms.
That are,
we had discussed, and we need to, at our regular meetings, we were kind of interrupted with the coronavirus and that March meeting. We didn't have any remote capacity immediately available to resume. So now we're back. And getting back to a reminder that Daryl had made is that, we had talked about the low-hanging fruit, but we also divvied up the different departments among our committee members. And so I think we can really divide and conquer this, and whether it may take a workshop meeting or two to
I think so.
we talked about Grafton celebrates the holidays, and here it is, May. We have some
Right.
time to make an impact
Right.
in
But there's
that.
something we we can make a lot of, we can do a lot of positive things. Like we can recognize businesses and recognize
Right.
groups that are highly accessible.
Okay.
So it doesn't have to be a complaint. It can be, in a different vein. We can, encourage people to become like Bob is saying, where he reaches out to businesses or reaches out to people who voluntarily make changes. We could read these reports, the different sections of the report, and then, kind of do the same, reach out and maybe make some suggestions and work with different, organizations and groups to see where we can get on some of these things. And the reason why I say it's low hanging fruit is because a lot of these things I don't think are going to cost a lot to implement, are going to have a
Right.
big impact.
Right. And we'll notice that when Christy and Daryl speak to the Tim and Becca, collaboration as new business, old business item. Thank you for your input, Missy. We have a huge opportunity to make some proactive steps to involve more people in the community and work collaboratively with department heads and other boards and committees. So I appreciate that. As far as, and maybe jumping ahead of ourselves, I'm thinking that Thursday, June 18th is our third Thursday of the month, just because Bob mentioned that, to put him on the agenda, I'd want to give him a concrete date here and now. Is third Thursday still working for us? I think it is. And is the third Thursday in June the 18th?
Works for me. This is Donna.
Okay.
Same here for Christy.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Daryl.
that's
and-
fine for me.
All right. Catherine, is the 18th good for you at 6:30?
Yes.
All right. How about you, Mr. Perla? Bob, are you there? Christy, you said, and Donna, is the 18th okay for you at 6:30?
Yep.
Who said yep?
That was Christy.
Okay. How about
And
you,
I just-
Donna?
Yes, I said yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So I'm hoping that that's good for Bob. Let's tentatively make it for the 18th at 6:30. I hope that works for you, Bob.
It does. Just send me an invite on the calendar or else I won't be there.
All right. And just any Q&A from the public.
I don't see anything yet.
I'm not seeing anything.
I
Okay.
do have one follow-up question for Bob, and maybe he can answer it in June.
Okay, sure.
Bob, if you don't mind, I just wanted to check on how the transition to remote has gone for people. And if there have been some access issues for people who are now working from home using the technology they have at home. And my other concern is that for people who are in the community, that they're getting, if not the same level of communication, but more during this pandemic, especially for alt format for people who are deaf and hard of hearing. I just wanted to check with you on that. So if you can report back later in June, that would be great. Thank you.
Well, I really don't have to report back. I mean, if you're talking about our meetings, like the meeting we're having right now, this meeting is on Zoom. This meeting can also be televised live on channel 192 and I think 34 in Verizon. I installed the switchboard in the control room, so anybody that doesn't have internet access, they can call a number and they can get into your Zoom that way. When we're on TV, I don't know what to say about deaf. We don't have closed caption. In the blind, I don't know what we can do about that either. But those are the actions that we took once this pandemic started. The first thing I did is I went into the cable studio and I started buying equipment and hiring some engineers. So right now, just like the Board of Selectmen, they're live and it's on TV, and there's way for the public to call in. Even if they don't have internet, they can watch a meeting.
Right. And to your point, Bob, I made sure that I dragged and dropped the phone number access on our agenda. Some of the other committees had not gone to that extent. And it's a best practice to have the call-in feature, and I made sure to add that to the top of our agenda tonight. So that's a good reminder, Bob, that a lot of people may not be realizing that there's the audio feature if people don't have internet access. Daryl.
I'm wondering if just maybe a simple thing, if you know how we have the display boards, if anything can be put on the display boards that direct people who are, who might need other access, who can direct them to where to find information.
And I'll answer that. When you're on TV,
Yeah.
we have the lower thirds that we can type in any message that you want. So if you wanted to type a message, if you want to call in, here's the number that can be displayed.
Okay. Thanks.
I like that idea.
That's a good idea. All right. Any other questions for Mr. Berger? All right. Thanks, Bob, for being with us this evening. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you.
You can hang out if you want, or you can.
No, it's time for my supper. Thank you, everybody.
All
Have a
right.
great-
Enjoy.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks,
Okay.
Bob. All right. And
Thank
so
you.
I just realized here we are 45 minutes into the meeting that I went from, I don't need this thing. Hearing, I was like, why is everyone sounding so muffled?
Now we can't hear you.
Okay, you can't hear me? Okay.
No. We need
Okay,
the microphone.
I do need this then.
Yeah, I think you're set up for the microphone on the headset.
Oh
so-
boy. Okay. So I'm set up for the microphone on the headset, and
Yeah.
now everyone's kind of a little bit muffled because I'm hearing you from the computer, but that's okay.
Why I did this. I can have the mic from the computer and the audio out here. So
Okay. So, all right. Next on the agenda, Jen Anderson, Director, Recreation Department. Jen, are you with us?
I am.
Okay. The agenda item reads update on recreational facilities assessment, section 9, pages 82 through 128 of the ADA report, as well as plans regarding Grafton Community Park / Super Park. That's the new name, Grafton Community Park. And then I had a link. I had provided a link on the agenda to the Rec Commission's page for the park project. So tackling this in two pieces. The ADA report that we had previously spoken about a few months ago. I know that, getting over Grafton celebrates the holidays is one of your next tasks was to start familiarizing yourself with the facilities assessment report, and it included about a dozen different areas and parks that are noted on page 82 of the report, and which I'll give you a freebie on. You're not responsible for the brush dump, but they put that on there. And but there are various items, priorities, and pricing that, excluding playground equipment, totals about 580 plus thousand. So aside from the pricing, there's all the talking points of all of the recreational facilities in town to the tune of 40 pages. So your thoughts at a high level regarding that which is contained in the report and how it fits into the other reports, including master plan and recreational fields assessments that have been done in the past. Where does this fit into your overall plans?
Well, I mean, under our department, really is playgrounds.
Mhm.
The parks and fields themselves, in a broader sense, are really under the Parks Department, control, and responsibility.
Mhm.
And some of the parks that are listed in this, recreational category are not under the purview of our department. Um, when you look at Nelson Park, there's a board of trustees that's responsible for that.
Mhm.
Mill Villages is under the board of selectmen. Um, I look at it with a focus of playgrounds specifically, and knowing that that's what we've been working on addressing in general.
Okay.
But also working, I work very close with the Parks Department in general about what we can do at our parks, and we both help fund each other in different things that need to be addressed. So I have spoken with the Parks Department, with Daryl and the superintendent, and him looking at kind of what is under his umbrella for this, and what would be under my umbrella. So we know in our playgrounds, and I have a couple of, I've been looking at some options to address the surfacing in the playgrounds, and so have those quotes, and are looking at a couple different options that would be able to more immediately address it and would be more financially feasible than, let's say, a poured in rubber solution. But we know that our biggest thing everywhere is the accessible route itself, right? So I've been working, like you said, I asked the folks who completed this plan to see if they had those tables in Excel format so I could sort it. So I've been manually working on that, so I can work with Daryl on that to say, here's where all the priority ones are, and what's the feasibility, and those sorts of things. But and
Mhm.
looking at how we want to address it, is it the low hanging fruits, and there's a lot of quick and easy and inexpensive things that we can do internally. Staff is obviously already spread thin, and so the time frame, I think, wouldn't be as immediate as we'd like, but there's a lot of very attainable things in there. So he's, after Memorial Day and that sort of stuff, really going to look at forming a timeline on what he thought he could address, and we would have to coordinate with DPW. They could handle things like handicap signage and repainting the lines for van spaces and those
Mhm.
sorts of things. But there's obviously some bigger cost items there that have to be figured out on who could help address those, and how we fund them.
Let me ask you this, Jen, from your experience, it seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that both surfacing, because everything's mulch right now, to surface something between that as well as new equipment, because the ADA self-eval doesn't make a guesstimate of what really needs to be added. It simply pointed out that these parks lacked accessible features and equipment. So as far as what's your experience as far as, is it on the high end, both surfacing and equipment? Are those pretty expensive items?
Well, I mean, our equipment is really considered compliant. It has transfer spaces, those sorts of things. We did a replacement at Perry Hill last year or the year before to replace the main structure that wasn't.
Mhm.
We do apparently need to have like a certain, we need to address the percent of ground level play that we might need at a couple different sites compared to elevated play.
Mhm.
But it's really the surfacing and the route that I really feel needs to be addressed. I think our equipment itself is pretty well covered when it comes to that.
Well, I know Perry Hill, that's priced out at about $36,000 worth of items that need to be addressed. Had you, so you've gone through though the Perry Hill piece of the ADA self-eval?
Well, not in a matter of like saying per number. I'm working on that kind of what it would mean, but I think I meant to say, and maybe forgot, within that ranking, what is the low hanging fruit versus
Right.
addressing a full compliance of
Right.
some of our most popular parks, right?
Right,
So you get like a Riverview Park is like kind of off the main drag, not as popular, but maybe some easy things there. But if you're looking to try to prioritize and triage some of this stuff, you look at like a Norcross Park, or airport, that are one of our most popular destinations, and see
Right.
if we can focus fully on making those.
All right, and that certainly makes sense. I kind of glanced at some of the rec department's minutes, and there were comments in the past that recognize that some areas are more out of the way than others, and or are very limited in scope. I mean, I would say that from the amount of equipment that is out there, Riverview is small in comparison to other park or play areas. But so you'll be working with parks as far as this item?
Yes, sorry, Derek, you want to?
Yeah, Daryl, I see you raising your hand. Sure.
So just, I'm being technical. So can I go through this list with you really quick, Jen, and you tell me who it falls under so that will actually help us along in our next worksheet. So Mill
If
Village,
I can, I'll give you kind of 3 categories, and then maybe this will help you. So playgrounds and themselves physically are directly under the purview of our department.
yeah,
Parks, fields, the parking lot, accessible route as part of the park as a whole would be under the Parks Department. I'm also reached out to Grafton Little League, and I was hoping to speak to them by tonight, but haven't heard back, because there's a lot that's going to be specifically their responsibility. If you look at some of the things at Ferry Street Park, regarding the McNamara building, the concession stand, dugouts, batting cages, those sorts of things, those would be their responsibility. So it's going to take a couple people to obviously come together and figure out the timeline and those sorts of things. But go ahead, please, if to expand on that, Daryl.
all right, so that was definitely helpful, but you mentioned other things. So the brush dump comes under the DPW,
Mhm.
and the bandstand comes under
Parks.
Parks,
Mhm.
and sidewalks, curbs, and ramps, obviously that is DPW and Parks.
I would say DPW, yes. Mhm.
Okay. And then Mill Villages comes under the Mill Villages.
Well, there's an advisory committee for mill villages, which would encompass additional the mill villages in town.
Yeah.
There's an advisory committee. The Board of Selectmen is actually responsible for that property, but the Parks does maintain it and cover the maintenance of that park. But I did speak to Daryl today with some of the stuff we could address there, and he'll address like moving the sign and those sorts of things. So Parks will deal with it.
All right, well, that's very helpful for me to organize this in my mind. Thank you.
Yeah. Mhm.
Thank you for thank you for that input, Daryl, and Jen. As far as you're recognizing that it's sort of like you can have it all, but you can't have it all at once. Tackling things as they need to be. Certainly, if the approach isn't accessible, everything else isn't accessible. So, tackling the approaches and the surfaces goes a long way in addressing some of these issues. I think that a lot of people have opined about potential cost prohibitiveness of tackling everything at once in every way that can be achieved at all the different levels. And so, tackling those approaches as well as the low-hanging fruit is certainly needed. And I appreciate you, tackling this in collaboration with Parks. I didn't realize a lot of cities and towns have Parks and Rec. So this sort of one. So now it's you're having to go out of your way, for lack of a better term, to collaborate to address things that the public sees as one, but you look upon a park as, okay, this portion is my piece, but the abutting, the adjoining parcel that's part of the same park is taken care of by another department. So
Yeah, and you even look at Nelson Park. I haven't reached out to the Board of Trustees with them to see if they've seen this at all, and to see what Nelson Park needs to be addressed, nor have I looked in that at depth. But also there's some grant opportunities, once I compile everything together, which I really have when it comes to the surfacing of playgrounds, those are some grant opportunities. So if we can compile all surfacing together, that could be one, for all playgrounds, could be one grant opportunity. So there are opportunities as well, for those sorts of items.
and keep us in the loop on that. I want to maintain, actually, as we divvied up, Jen, the work in the departments, I was given the charge. I volunteered to be, Parks and Rec, including Community Park for this. And we had signed off on, as a commission, the grant application for the municipal ADA grant that we didn't get regarding the 2 ramps behind the municipal center. So the more folks that are behind this, the better.
Right.
Especially,
Yeah, they definitely, letters of support are definitely obviously helpful.
and even with that grant application that we made, the municipal grant, we were one of the applicants. So if it's possible to be one of the applicants, or or be one of the folks who provides a letter of support, whatever is needed, I think these things are weighted more strongly when they see that a town takes these matters seriously. And one of the ways we've done it is now having an active disability commission. So I look forward to working closely with you on any grants that can be, found, especially in these tough times. I wish money grew on trees, but
Christy has her hand up.
who has her hand up?
Christy.
Yeah. Hi, Jen. This is Christy Proctor. And my question for you has to do more with the programming aspect, especially the piece that comes mailed to us that has a very full compilation of programs for adults and children from the spring through the summer. And I love the booklet. I love all the ideas. I'm a big fan of pickleball. But in the meantime, I noticed that there's a liability in the publication of printing that material, because nowhere in that booklet or on your website does it have an invitation that if you need an accommodation to participate in any of the programs, to please contact you as the host to request something at least 2 days in advance, whether it be accessible van transportation if you're providing a service or an event that would bring, say, for example, the kids up to Boston, or if someone needs a sign language interpreter for an event or venue or music event that's being held at one of the parks.
Christy, you still there?
Yeah.
I can hear. Yep.
I think Christy may have
No, I'm still here.
gotten cut off in mid-sentence. Can everyone hear me?
I can hear.
her.
I can hear both of you.
Yeah.
Christy, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right. So were you finished with your question? I
Yes.
apologize.
Yes. So again, Jen, I just want to make sure we're covering ourselves for liability, but we're also being inclusive and we're being proactive, so that if someone were to need an accommodation, that we would be informed of it in a timely manner and really step up to the plate to reach out and show our inclusivity by asking people to disclose the need for an accommodation, say a week in advance if it needs a lot of planning, to 2 days in advance before something that may need less setup. And then if in a venue were to be wheelchair accessible, that we have an icon at that portion of content for the listings of the programs, and continue with that sort of code Whether it's the wheelchair, the sign language interpreter, all those icons are there for a reason. And I don't understand why we're not using them for our events to show that, yes, this will be something that someone with a disability can partake in. So I'm just encouraging us to think of the lens of disability, because I think holistically, when you look at our population of adults, probably 30% have a disability, maybe less in children, but we still need to think about them and include them in all aspects of our programming. So I just want to offer my services to work with you on that, or to think about how that can be done. Thank you.
Yeah, and you have information. I just don't think the specific, the specificity that you're talking to, I've come across as to what we do need to do. This transition plan just happening, me being in this role for 4.5 years, and dealing with what this is coming across. So and we haven't had a lot of requests. We'll do our best to accommodate what we can accommodate. And I think some stuff, there's been a lot of question amongst all of our town recreation departments is what our responsibility really is when it comes to a couple things in programming, and what we have to provide and pay for. And whether it's you're in a school setting or because so I've received a lot of conflicting information, and people seem to not have a clear answer on what our responsibility is for a couple of things. So if there's information you can share, I'd be all over it. Please send it my way.
Thank you, Christy, for offering that assistance. Let me ask you, Christy, I see two icons that have your name on it, one that had your hand up, and then another one. Are you logged in twice?
Yes, as I explained at the beginning of the meeting, Roger, one is for my audio and one is for my camera.
Okay. As a
'Cause I
typical
don't
guy,
have-
I wasn't listening. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
that's okay. That's
I have a
okay.
question for Jen.
Yeah, Missy, go ahead.
So actually, I'm really excited that you're here because we had a conversation, I want to say right about when you started in this role about this services. And we talked about the possibility of adding intramural sports for individuals with different abilities. Do you remember having that conversation a long time ago?
Maybe a touch. So yeah.
It was a really long time
Yeah.
ago. And you were really super open to it. And I want to thank you, years later again, for being that open to it. And what you had expressed to me at the time was that you were kind of needed some guidance on it, maybe like donated curriculum for like a from maybe some of our school OTs or people. So I reached out to the school way back when, and I also received some great feedback from them and willingness to participate, but it just never came to fruition. And I'm kind of hoping that now in this role that we can maybe revisit that and maybe include some explicitly inclusive programming, such as an adaptive intramural sports or something like that to our programming for kids with different abilities and adults as well. At the time we talked about it in with respect to kids, but is that something that you'd be open to revisiting?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. I mean, part of it was trying to figure out, who was already kind of doing what. There's a
Right.
program at the high school that they run. We were looking to try to venture into offering some form of Special Olympics in one sport or the other, through our department. And it's just you look at everything in our department and what the bandwidth can really be with two people, and what we have to deal with on a daily basis, let alone our growth. So in the budget coming up, we do have the potential to fund from our revolving funds, not town up, not general fund budget, a third person, and that's what would that person's focus would really be, to be able to expand our programming, offer more internally programs to save money to the participants, and be more profitable for us, and try to seek out those vendors or internal staff, right, from the school department that could help us do
Right.
that.
In my other role as a CPAC chair, I speak to a lot of parents who are willing to pay for classes that their kids can participate in locally. Again, adaptive intramural sports and other programming, like, you know, like maybe like a sensory friendly Halloween events or additional information added to our existing programming that makes it easier to navigate and participate.
Mhm.
Like I'd mentioned previously, like maybe like identifying sensory friendly stops that are the Frosty stops, like recognizing local businesses, restaurants that are sensory friendly or autism friendly, or I'm just picking that as an example. It doesn't have
No,
to be that
and when Roger
specifically.
and I talked about that, I think either approaching Grafton Celebrates the Holidays last year or maybe right after that,
Yep.
and not putting that into, our radar quite yet, but learning what what those needs would be, so we could reach out to, when we reach out to these businesses to participate, to seek out these sorts of things and what they'd be able to provide, and help add it to what they're offering, or what we can, mark out of the 40 plus businesses that participate, where those places would be.
Even like
Right.
quiet stops, I think we had
Right,
talked
like
about
like
quiet
Signature
stops.
Finishes has the Santa that is when you walk right in the door, and there's not like it's different. I mean, not that they're all not excellent stops. I'm just saying like that's where my kids go. With I have a really autistic child who can't wait and has transition issues, and we've always found that to be like an amazing experience. So like I've shared that with some parents. It would be really nice to be able to have some kind of like a symbol or something. Or
Right.
I'm not even sure how we would determine what was, not to single people out, negatively, just to kind of like, I guess, provide like an additional designation for stops that are friendlier.
Yeah, I mean, we know, like,
Yeah.
I think I said to Roger, I mean, some could be, and we just know some can't, with
Right.
they're offering. But if it's something they could, if they knew kind of what that criteria, what you were looking for, that we could give to them, so they could come up with another idea, or change their event. Now, I mean, I'm sure
Right.
they're looking to be, as helpful as well.
Right. Oh
Jen,
yeah, I think
what-
that's my experience is that everyone is wanting to be as helpful as possible. I think they just kind of need to know where to start and what's actually needed. Everybody I've spoken to across the board has been 100% on board with the idea.
So let me ask you this, Jen, when do you start planning? It may be a little bit different this year, depending on what COVID has in store for us. But what is the time frame that you start planning? Or do you never stop planning once the last one's over?
No, I tend to not harass them for a while. But no, I mean, basically, every like January, February, well, actually, I take that back. I'm changing the time frame. We had been the past couple of years reaching out at the beginning of the year saying, here's our entire year's worth of sponsorship opportunities, and to participate in our events, so they could look at everything as a whole and see what worked best for them financially and business wise. Before that, we had been reaching out in August, September. We do have like a first week of October commitment, deadline, so we can go to print with that. So they have information. I changed it, so they'll be getting. We're going to be running an August to July sponsorship year, so we could better include everybody in our brochures. So August, September, they'll be getting the reminder and the information about the sign up. In October would be the deadline for the registration.
So could something go out to them with respect to identifying as a,
Yeah, exactly. So if I had,
like, how do we go about this is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
goes out that time would be the most sense to send it out then, right?
I think absolutely. Because one, so if there was some criteria from you of what you'd be looking for, what we could recommend to them, because they would submit at that time the description of their event, right, for the brochure. So be able to say, could you meet this criteria? What are you offering to address this? And like check here or whatever it is. And then we would know, or be able to promote, or highlight differently those
Right.
options.
And it could even be like for a specific period of time, like maybe they turn the music down, or maybe they, whatever it is, that's like, it doesn't even necessarily have to be the entire time.
Well, yeah, I mean,
It could
maybe
be
it's
like
the
from
grocery
2 to
store.
4,
Yeah, like the grocery stores now have the senior hour before, maybe it's like our whole thing is really 12 to 4. Some people do shorter hours, but if there was maybe a time before or after where you knew it was more designated, or they earmarked from 2 to 3, all these businesses could commit saying from 2 to 3, it's this, and
I
just
wouldn't
looking
say
at time.
people can't come who are not in that category. I would say more
Right,
they do things specifically that make it more open to, more accessible to a specific
right.
group. And then
So-
everyone, regardless, is still welcome at that time. I wouldn't block off times that are, you know what I mean?
Well, no,
So-
but be able to highlight at some point what would be a better time for people with those needs.
Right. And what can be, that's gonna be different for everybody. Like every
Yeah.
stop is gonna probably have a completely different, so that's just something that I think. So you're saying when you send out that paperwork in, did you say August?
Yeah, in
Can you
August.
do that?
Mhm.
Okay, so then would it be helpful to collaborate on like maybe a draft handout that goes out to them?
Sure. Yeah, I
That-
mean, it will
that
be
would be
one. It
good.
will be part of a huge mailer we typically do, but I also email all the people for this specifically that have typically participated. It's a lot more electronic with that group now because they're pretty much locked in. But be able to highlight that paragraph of the
Right.
new this year type information. Yeah.
Okay,
So
so maybe
that-
Roger, can we add that to our agenda for our next meeting? Or a future meeting to kind of work on drafting
Our
that?
meeting very soon. And this could be something either we could talk about at a meeting as an agenda item, or as the point person for rec. When we divvied up tasks and with the commission's blessing, maybe you and I could also collaborate on the side as far as
Right.
what those symbols, what those activities look like, and
all you
maybe,
guys are frozen.
pardon?
I can still see everybody moving.
Jenny, you there?
I can still see people moving.
Okay. Catherine,
Yeah.
I see Catherine. All right. Missy, Catherine, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm good on all.
All right. Missy, you okay?
Yeah.
All right. Daryl, you still there?
Yep.
All right. Donna? Donna, you still with us? I'm seeing her picture, but I'm not hearing her voice. Christy?
Yep, I'm still here.
Okay. I just want to make sure we were all, and Bob?
I'm still here.
All right, sir. Okay. And so Jen Anderson just disappeared on us.
Yep.
Anyone know her cell phone number? I do not have her cell phone number.
Well, I think that she did a great job answering questions.
I
And
think she did.
we need to say thank you, Jen, and move
Thank you.
on to the next.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, and then we can collaborate, like you said, and I'll reach out, or you and I can reach out later on to her to draft that paragraph.
right.
Work on those
Absolutely.
symbols and everything.
Yeah.
I think you
And-
kind of said what we had to say on that subject anyway.
Yeah. And the thing is too, is that if Jen Anderson isn't able to get back online, I would say that, all right, so there's this community park, super park part of the agenda, largely in
move
my
it.
mind being the accessibility piece of that project. But I know that, and there is going to be some type of meeting likely next week. I don't know who's hosting it, but as we approach town meeting, which may or may not be delayed from its current date of June 20th, which is a Saturday, there will be one or more community meetings regarding the community park, formerly known as the Super Park. So if she does come back, I guess we could move on our agenda and then come back to her if she logs back on. Did anyone have any comments, even in her absence, about this? I look forward to our commission being able to have some hands-on impact regarding something that is a huge part of the community experience in town. And we have some time to play with. It's not right around the corner. So we can discuss it at as part of an agenda item as follow-up. But Missy, I'd like to collaborate with you on this to really get that questionnaire and that brochure really where it needs to be.
I also want to support what Christy said about that liability, with the wording needing to be included in the, where she had mentioned that it didn't say about the accommodation, reasonable accommodation time. I think that message was heard though, but I just wanted to say that I support that. I concur with that.
Okay. Awesome.
Okay.
All right. Any other? Daryl, you had mentioned needing to leave early. Are you still with us?
I'm still here and I'm going to stay till 8. So at 8, I'm going to sign off. And Jen Anderson, by the way, just went into our participant attendees.
Okay. All right. Hold on a second. Hold on a second.
And while you're moving her over, could someone tell me, I know obviously the May 11th date has been changed. Roger, you said town meeting's going to be on a Saturday.
Yeah, town meeting is on a Saturday.
If anyone knows that date, I'd appreciate knowing it. I have a few things floating around here and I'm not sure which one is correct.
The town meeting is Saturday, June 20th, and the election is June 23rd.
Right.
Okay,
Tuesday.
thank you. I was confused. Thank you, Donna.
Welcome.
So Donna, question for you. It's more likely that the election will go forward without delay, but the town meeting, I'm aware, and a lot of the community members are aware of the likelihood that it could be delayed in our open town meeting format. But is it that the election is likely to go forward without any further delay?
Yeah, the state has said that all elections need to take place by June 30th.
Okay.
A town meeting can be postponed.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Donna. All right. Welcome back, Jen. You there? I can't hear you.
Oh, yeah, I got kicked out. That's never happened to all the Zoom meetings I've had. So
I had nothing to do with it.
sorry, I don't know if I missed anything or if you still would like to.
No, we were ready to move on with it with my comment that if you came back, we would revisit and pick up where we left off. And so, thanking you for your efforts. See, we sang your accolades during your brief absence.
Oh man, I missed it.
Yeah. So moving on to the community parks / super park, I did mention in your absence, without mentioning a date, that you and others would be having community meetings. And I understand that there may be one next week via Zoom.
Yes.
Is it posted on your, it's not really a committee. It's not a town committee meeting. It's a group that is having a Zoom meeting.
Yeah, I mean, the recreation is putting it on. I'm putting it on. The rec commission would be there in attendance. So I posted an agenda in case there's a quorum. But mainly me presenting, the landscape architect will be there to discuss the design and master plan. Annie DeShane, the owner's project manager for the town, will be there to address any questions. Joanne and John Stevens from CPC will be there to address any questions. So it's just a formal more presentation. Really
what's the date and
similar.
time, Jen?
It's next Wednesday, May 27th, 7 p.m. There's a Zoom link posted on our Facebook page for the event, the project website page on graftonrec.com as well, and for people to be able to access. But yeah, so it will be a lot of the information really that's been out there, a video that I produced and got out there and running on cable TV. The information is on the project website, but just giving people, we're trying to give people as many informational opportunities and Q&A sessions that we can before town meeting.
Right. I have a couple of questions for you on the outset, and then I'll cede my my comments to other commission members. I had noticed like there's different potential phases on this particular phase regarding accessibility in the playground area in phase 1. If that proceeds and is voted forward, okay, without even considering the future phases, is that something that could be standalone, or is there the infrastructure that is being laid on phase 1? Is some of that anticipating that future phases will be approved by the town? And what would those structures be, or what the infrastructure, whether it's piping or electrical, and how much of the cost of phase 1 is attributed to laying the groundwork for future phases?
Yeah, so the infrastructure that would be part of this and part of the cost of that would be with the plan that there would be hopefully an eventual future expansion and amenities. So, water would be run for a potential splash pad, electricity for a potential lighted loop path, sewer for potential bathrooms. And I have to really clarify if it's really just going to be like, piping or so it's easier, it's already going to be all underground under the library parking lots. We don't have to go back, and then we're just going to go back and rerun, or if we're really talking about, full blown. But I'd have to pull it up, but I know it's in the $200-something thousand range.
Okay.
For that. So knowing that, looking at if the funding that we're asking for with CPC funds at town meeting didn't go through, and we still had our $241,000 in existing funds, that we'd be able to at least cover the cost of moving forward with the infrastructure, getting the infrastructure done in timing with the library project.
Right. And I know that not to open up a can of worms, but I'll open up a can of worms. I know there is a competing warrant article that does seek to rescind the initial 2 something. So it's possible that it remains to be seen if this doesn't move forward at this time, that it also could be that 200,000+ may not be available depending on the outcome of that warrant article.
Right.
All right. But in the end, regarding, couldn't you just hypothetically, if that 200 something that was left over from, I think it was overlay that was geared toward the super park, couldn't you just bond, if that money didn't exist, couldn't the town just bond against future CPC receipts the entire amount, the entire cost of phase 1? What is it, 1 million or 1.1?
Yeah, 1.19. They could. What they're giving us now is kind of like what they've decided is their kind of internal policy or best practice, and to only bond based on half of what their revenue would be. So we're not tying up their full revenue on a yearly basis. So they would still have half of their, yearly funds to be able to do other things that came down the pipeline.
And I think it's been more difficult as time has gone on. We approved this thing in, I think, 2002, and we were one of the first towns to do it. And now we were getting 100% match, and now we're down to under 20% match. And so as the years have gone down, they're dealing with the same pool of money, but more towns to divvy up those matching CPC funds at the state level. So
yeah, so they don't even include those in the bond, Roger. They go purely on the town's revenue.
Okay,
So the match is not even in question because it's obviously a, uncertain number.
and so would it be a 20-year?
10-year.
Okay, 10-year. Okay.
Yeah.
I know that we're still bonded for
Gonna turn my light on.
the Hassamasset Woods for, I think, another 12. So,
And Pell Farm, so that's part of it too. So I'm gonna turn my light on here, block the sun. Pell Farm as well. So
Okay.
those are still on the, the block to pay off. And so that's why they went to the factor they were comfortable with without,
Okay.
tying up
Okay.
too much.
so are most of the accessibility features of, at least from a playground standpoint, entirely contained in phase 1? The playground structures?
Phase 1, this playground that's part of this would not be a complete playground. There would still be room to expand that further down. But say it again, am I addressing, I want to be clear in your question.
Well, I just want to make sure that there would be adequate, in other words, everything, it's really being proactively making sure that there's a wide range of accessible features to
Right. Oh,
whatever
sure.
footprint you put down there under phase 1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're gonna be meeting, there'll be the swings and accessible swings or gosh, I'm drawing the name on the, I don't want to say bucket swing. That's a basket swing.
Right.
Those sorts of features, equipment for both age ranges 2 to 5 and 5 to 12. We would just be able to be expounding upon that potentially down the road.
All right. Let me ask you this, Jen, and I have one more question, then I'll stop blabbing. It has to do with the fact that absent the railroad in the town or whomever investing in a quiet zone, and assuming that the air raid signal remains out of service due to broken parts near the old highway barn, I had a concern about the decibel level. When I'm up in the common in that area and the train comes across that area, it crosses over North Street and it's slow moving and it has 2 crossings. And the decibel level is mind bending, and I don't have sensory issues, and for someone that does not, I find it quite uncomfortable personally being up there when the train is crossing. And I'm wondering what thought and plans have been given to mitigating that level of sound, considering the number of kids and adults with sensory issues who would otherwise, it would be an uncomfortable experience which they may wish to avoid.
My kids do fall into that category, just to throw that out there. So I have a particular interest in that and concern for that as well.
Daryl, go ahead.
Pardon, I have to sneeze. I apologize for this, and it ain't coming out. Daryl, go ahead, please.
I'm just saying goodbye, and whoever is going to take over taking notes, we are on, I haven't started, because we haven't started number 4 on the agenda yet. So that's where we're taking notes.
Excuse me.
Okay,
Thank you.
got it. Thanks, Daryl.
See you guys soon.
Thank you, Daryl. Christy, one of the things I wanted to ask you, and I didn't double back with you, is that before Daryl left, I didn't get to clarify. At the point she came back, I'm thinking you both may have been taking minutes.
Yes.
Okay, and when she came back, I overlooked telling her that you had taken over minutes. So you're gonna need to double back with her to sort of capture.
Yeah, that's okay.
things comprehensively. I apologize for that.
No, that's fine. We'll have the best notes ever.
Yeah, there you go. And so, did someone have a question for Jen?
I was just
Missy.
curious as to what she thought about the sensory piece of it and how it would impact accessibility during those times to the park, if that's been a consideration or if she had any thoughts about it, or what do you think?
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's, you know, what we're focused on a plan now versus what we had before. That area along the fencing of that track is not going to be developed in this phase, and would potentially maybe have a multi-sport court there, which I think would help with I mean their noise level maybe versus the train. But in speaking with Amy Deshane, the owners, our project manager, he's been working in the trailer on a daily basis at the library. And you know, the train does give some audible warnings at the previous crossings that would give, you know, kind of gives you the warning that it's coming before it gets to the center. And has said that it only comes by about twice a day. So I think those two factors help as well, that there would be, you know, that audible warning. And he's going to let me know if he thought it was a consistent time a day. You know, that's something that we could be able to let people know about. But we are looking at, you know, making
Like if it
sure
was 2
we're,
and 4 o'clock, I couldn't go at 2 and 4 o'clock because my kids would be distressed by the, you know, and that, not to be nitpicky, but this is a big project. And for it to start off without accessibility is hard for me to swallow a little bit in that sense.
yeah, no, I think, you know, knowing that I think there's discussions, like Roger said, if this would become a quiet zone. Tim, the town administrator, brought up, you know, is there some sort of other warning system that that the railroad could use? And the landscape consultant is just pricing out other barriers. So let alone the vegetation that would exist, and the distance at the playground at least would be from there. You know, if there's a feasible, more physical barrier that we could put, really getting a nail down on, you know, how often that's happening, and if we knew what time, and those sorts of things. So, and you know, especially with the railroad, if we knew that the railroad company was saying, yes, we can do this, but it won't happen until here, that we would at least, you know, we would have that as well, to be able to let people know that this is the time frame it would be.
So you guys
Yeah,
are
they could
already,
get an option.
is what you're saying. You guys are already considering this, which is really good.
Right.
Yeah, you know, I know that it's been asked by you guys, and we know it exists, and you know, making sure, again, I mean, we're part of this playground, you know, we want to make sure, again, it's fully inclusive. And so we're looking at sensory panels and those kind of quiet, safe places, you know, if kids get overwhelmed and need in the quiet space. So those are all being incorporated to at least this first phase, so it will exist right away.
All right. I
One more
appreciate that.
question about that. You'd mentioned some like sound warnings. Is there any plan to include some kind of visual warning system for hearing impaired people that wouldn't be able to access the sounds, like, I guess? Like
We have not had that conversation, but it's definitely obviously something that should be incorporated. So I will bring that to the designer's attention.
And thank you, Jen. And that was one of my major concerns, aside from the fact that there are those with sensory issues who just won't like crowds, and some of the less traveled parks are suitable to folks with those needs. But I just want to mention, just from a perspective of where I'm physically sitting now, okay, I live at 4 Old Upton Road. That's where the bend, where it's South Street becomes Old Upton. I'm a half mile from that railroad crossing. If that train were crossing the center right now as we speak, all of you sitting here would still be able to hear that through my closed windows 1/2 mile away. It's significant. amount of sound. Haven't tested the decibel level. I don't have one of those gadgets, but it's multiplied exponentially when you're like, it's right physically on you. 140 decibels. It's one of the loudest sounds up close that I would ever want to experience. So whatever plans are being discussed, they have to be real well thought out. No amount of trees, shrubs, or barriers is going to mitigate the amount of sound significantly enough to have someone with a sensory issue be able to be there at those times. So again, to your point, Jen, you thought it was only twice a day that those runs were made?
That's what Andy's saying from working there on a daily basis, but he's gonna be, paying a little more attention to it.
Right. Okay. And the only reason I mentioned that is in the context of, I think it was mentioned somewhere, maybe even on your webpage, that the concept of a dog park, aside from some people fearing dogs, was the noise level of dogs, which is far less than a locomotive and coming through. And so I couldn't stress that enough, that is something that really needs to be a high priority item when referring to accessibility. And I think it's one that is often overlooked for those who don't know the particular landscape and have never been there when that train comes through and have witnessed that and experienced that up close and personal. Folks in the new library are going to get to do that on a daily basis, but knock on wood, they can make that a quiet zone. But yeah, that's my input for that meeting for next week. Are there any other comments on the accessibility issues? I like how it's not just equipment, it's all ages, that it's not just for little kids, that you've been thinking about the accessibility issues, Jen. So could you talk about not just the kids stuff, but the adult stuff?
Well, that's what we're really trying to make sure people understand, that this would be multi-generational. It's offering something that does not exist in town at any one of our parks. And so many people comment on the fact that they're going to a Dean Park in Shrewsbury or a McAfee in Northborough for what it does have. And we would be able to have that in our own town. So between the open lawn, the walking path, the playground, a picnic pavilion, I just think is going to be amazing, and be able to have that span of ages people participating in the same place, with it being centralized in town, with it being large, being able to accommodate those ranges and those activities that like I said, doesn't exist in town and wouldn't be able to at one of our current facilities, no matter what we did, because of their size and layout. So it's a really great opportunity for the whole community to be able to come together. And that's really what our tagline has been, that we put out there, a place to be together.
All right. And one other point of clarification so that people know, with the exception of that $200,000 piece, the bonding piece with community preservation funds, although it is a surcharge on property taxes, has nothing to do with the tax levy that goes toward the annual budget. If you could confirm that, even though it's a rhetorical question.
Yeah, no, I think it's really important. I've been addressing that all day with comments on Facebook and such, with some posts that I've made, and I think it's really important that people understand that. I think a big question from people is how can you consider this project now when there is a potential override and loss in revenue for the town through the virus. These funds and CPC exist no matter what, specifically for projects like this. And there are no other projects in front of CPC at this time that we are competing with, or that aren't able to happen if we do get these funds. And these funds can't be used for anything besides a project like this. They can't help the town's operational budget. It's not going to, I think a lot of people are looking at, between covering teachers and firefighters, which are important. It's just, these are not what these funds are for. So making sure people that understand that there's a divide there, and it's really two separate funding sources, and these funds can't address those other issues.
Okay. And unlike maybe future expansion, would it be I know the CPC funds can't be used for routine maintenance. I heard somewhere where Parks, DPW felt that they could incorporate into their day-to-day maintenance of this area without incurring any additional expense if it goes through.
Yeah, I mean, the anticipation is it's very minimal. I come out of my budget every year. We spend a few $1,000s on the, engineered wood fiber that we have to lay as the surfacing in our other playgrounds right now. That wouldn't obviously exist in this playground.
Mhm.
The playground itself, equipment-wise, shouldn't have to be addressed for quite some time. But again, that is earmarked in our budget on a yearly basis, as a couple $1,000s to address anything that might come up. So that already exists. The Parks Department, the design itself is being really cognizant of the ease of maintenance and what it would mean for parks to have to do regarding mowing or in landscaping and such. And the Parks Department feels confident they can absorb that within their current staffing.
All right. I'm glad you've answered that question, because that was something I've, heard, bantered about that, because CPC monies couldn't be used for maintenance, what, if any, additional expenses would be incurred? And you're saying that basically there shouldn't be any.
No, I mean, we when you start looking at maybe down the road, a splash pad or restrooms or something, I mean, you'd have to look at what those expenses might mean, but not with what we're presenting at this time at all.
All right. Anyone else have any questions for Jen? I feel like I've been a conversation hog. Catherine.
I did have a comment regarding the train sound. I thought maybe checking in with people at South Grafton Elementary would be a good idea, because they do have the train that goes through the playground in the back, and see if they have any ideas about what they do about the sensory issues with students and stuff with the train noise.
And they also have the air horn that's literally right in the parking lot.
Yeah, and going there as a student with sensory issues, I remember just having that bother me. But maybe in the past, 25 years, they've come up with something for it. So they might be worth checking in with them.
All right. Anyone else with any comments or questions to Jen?
Just thanks for coming.
Thank you.
No, thank you guys. Yeah.
And Jen, could you repeat what date and time that Zoom meeting will be again?
We are having the formal presentation next Wednesday, May 27th at 7 p.m. via Zoom. That link is posted on the graftonrec.com page under the community park section, as well as it being an event on our Facebook page. We have posted other times as well. I'm doing Wednesday nights and Friday mornings as an informational and Q&A section, and have offered myself for any time that people would be more convenient virtually, by phone, by email, a socially distant visit, whatever helps them be in a platform that make them comfortable to ask a question and I can address, or in a time that is more convenient for them.
All right. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good night.
Roger,
Who's
Donna,
Donna? Yes.
I've got to sign off. I've got an assignment due for a course I'm taking right now.
Okay. Thank you for your attendance, Donna.
All right. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you, Jen. All right. So Christy, you noted the time of Daryl and Donna's departures.
Correct.
All right, awesome. So, okay, hold on a second. So it's me, Bob Perla, Christy, Missy, and Catherine. All right, so moving on. Discussion, item 4. Missy Lackey had asked to be placed on the agenda to with prepared comments, discussion of state and federal guidance regarding COVID-19 and distance learning. This will include prepared comments by Disability Commission member Melissa Lackey, and will also touch upon web-based resources of Special Needs Advocacy Network, Inc., SPAN. That's spanmass.org. /COVID-19. So, Missy, yeah, have at it.
All right, I'll just jump right in. So there have been a lot of questions. In my other role as a CPAC chair, I've been talking a lot with parents about things they've been thinking about with the distance learning, things they've been hearing, and there's a lot of confusion, as you can imagine, about how to implement some of the guidance. So I'm just going to break some of it down for you as quickly as possible. While the guidance does respond to some of the questions arising from this unprecedented situation, the big takeaway here is that neither the U.S. Department of Education nor Congress has provided flexibility with respect to IDEA law. So IDEA law, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, is still in effect in its full capacity. The state is correspondingly constrained. The big message to the school is just to do your best to provide services to students with disabilities and meet applicable deadlines. Timeline has not changed. Individuals may opt, parents and families may opt to consent to evaluate remotely, and every effort should be made by districts to be creative, document your efforts, and expect that there will be some discussion regarding compensatory educational services provision once we get back to school, especially that the guidance does state that there is an expectation that some degradation of service provision may occur. This largely applies to technical difficulties or situations where it would be impossible to provide, but a lot of these services can be and are being provided via Zoom and other services directly. And just to consider that, for districts to consider that, our district to consider that when having those conversations regarding remote learning plans with families. So for parents, it's important to document any struggles and challenges in a specific and measurable way, and to communicate these concerns to your child's team as soon as possible. We're all doing the best that we can. And if your child is struggling and refusing to do work or unable to access the environment, please do reach out to your team. And let me just move on forward. CPAC will be hosting a basic rights workshop. We weren't sure what we were going to be able to do with everything going on, but at a previous meeting, we had agreed to seek out Elaine Rabbit, who has graciously agreed to host a virtual basic rights workshop. We spoke yesterday about that in response to, again, some discussions and agreements we had made at a previous meeting that we would reach out to her.
How can people reach you, Missy, in your role, your other hat as CPAC chair, Special Ed Parent Advisory Council? What's the best way people can reach out to you, either phone or by email or a website? If you could share that with the public.
Sure, I actually have that here. I'll jump ahead to that part. So you can email us at graftoncpac2019@gmail.com. We have a very active Facebook page. We do receive messages via Facebook, private messages. I do provide my personal phone number out to be reached. I can provide it here for you now.
Yeah, please.
973-271-1712. And I do use that number officially to be contacted via CPAC. So if you need to reach me, you may reach me, with that. I prefer not to use my personal email for CPAC business, but you can reach me through the Grafton CPAC 2019@gmail.com. So just to circle back here, again, the key takeaways are just that basically nothing in the law has changed or the procedural safeguards, nor has it been waived or suspended as a result of remote learning or distance learning. And importantly here, parents and families do not have to waive any of the rights provided by these laws and safeguards in order to access FAPE or any part of this process. Participation in distance learning does not constitute an agreement in any way to waive any of those rights. So I know that that's been a talking point. I just wanted to clarify without digging into it, because we'll do that at our basic rights, that you don't have to do that in order to access FAPE, which is a free and appropriate public education. So just to go back to the basic rights workshop, we are in the process of hammering out the date. It's probably going to be in about 2 weeks. It's going to be via Zoom. We're gonna post it up. We're waiting for our presenter to give us the final dates so that we can push them forward to our special education director. And we're really looking forward to being able to host that. And if anybody has any questions or concerns about anything, please do feel free to reach out to us.
All right. Thank you, Missy. And
Including the school.
all right. Any questions from the public? I know I've been remiss in actually proactively asking that, but normally in these Zoom meetings, if people had comments, they would throw that into the Q&A bucket. But I'm not seeing any. Certainly thank people who have taken their time to participate. I mean, at least, watch and view our meeting. Any questions from the commission to Missy or amongst each other on this agenda item? All right, then let's move forward to what was a placeholder, item 5, the February 27th minutes. We'll table those to our next meeting. One of the things, as a reminder, we had talked about at our prior meetings is that rather than not address it, even if we knew that the minutes weren't going to be voted on, that we would put them there as a sort of visual that it needed to be addressed. So then that takes us to item 6, old business. Now, Christy, I know that Daryl has left, and now in hindsight, it may have been beneficial to have both of you weigh in on the front end of the meeting instead of old business. But I'm glad to hear that, Christy, both you and Daryl really made some gains and some headway regarding offering some expertise and services to town administrator and assistant town administrator Tim and Becca.
Yes, so Daryl and I met with Tim, and Becca came in 5 minutes later, and we included her as well. And I think that what was supposed to be like a 15-minute meeting went on for half an hour, and we really talked and explained and went back and forth about ways we can support what they're doing to make the town accessible on many different levels, including the website. We talked about how to, and Becca even looked it up super quick, how to test a website for accessibility issues, how to make events more accessible, how to do invitations, how to post ways for people to request an interpreter for a town meeting in advance. And we talked about a date, which actually never came to fruition, in April, that both Daryl and I would go to a town department head meeting and talk with them about the sections of the ADA regs that really apply to them as managers. And I think that what we'll try to do going forward is when Daryl finishes her school year, we'll try to get back in when she has a little more leeway I know that in my setting as well, we're actually busier at remote instruction and remote provision of services than we were when we were in person. So I think when we both get done with our year in June, we'll come up for air and jump over and attend a meeting in the summer with Tim, Becca, and the department heads. We did share the document. Remember we made that wonderful document?
Yes.
That was the memo, the reference sheet for disability commission members.
Yes.
Okay, so they loved that. So everyone, good job.
Thank you, team.
Yeah, they were really, Becca and Tim were both pleased to see how we had assigned portions of town departments to each of our purview. And we really just talked about too, not just physical barriers, we talked about attitudinal barriers and, just said, we all have some different abilities and talents and, please don't hesitate to ask us anything. And I think that was really new for them because I don't think because we've been an absent commission, I think this is kind of a welcome surprise, to put it that way. Daryl and I felt like when we walked out, like they asked us so many questions. We just felt it was so productive to start with that relationship building from that angle. And of course, Daryl knew Tim from before, and so that was in some ways, an easy, very casual, welcome, introducing ourselves. But I felt we got a lot done in the half hour we were there. It was very productive.
That's awesome. And it was only, we've been out of touch a little bit since, the COVID situation. And I had only recently found out about the gains you had made and specifically the outcome of this meeting. And I'm really psyched to hear how well it went. And, you talk about low hanging fruit and, being proactive. This is the free stuff that just a matter of bringing people together who are like-minded, volunteers who can do some tangible stuff that has a positive impact. So I'm really psyched. Those are my sentiments on this. Anyone else want to weigh in or ask Christy about, next steps or anything else about that meeting at all? Other than you rock.
Yeah, right. Thanks.
No, that's psyched. I'm psyched because, not to be hokey about it, but, all it takes is just a little initiative and time and people sharing their areas of expertise and coming together, for the common good. And I think we're, with this COVID-19 thing, to add insult to injury, as if we don't have enough going on in our lives, that now more than ever, I can see, especially with this most recent meeting that you had, how even though we don't, have the ability to just throw money at fixing stuff that needs money to be fixed, these are the situations that really people can really make an impact. And so I'm psyched to hear that it went so well and it was received by such a wide audience.
Right. And I think that for all of us, I think coming forward as a commission and instead of saying, can you do this for us? Or can you give us money? I'm sure they're asked that every day. Do you have money for this? Instead, we came at it from an angle like this is where we want to help. And this is where our interests, abilities, talents, whatever, really dovetail with your town departments.
Right.
And I think that, like I said, really, I think that coming in with a little bit of a plan, not to say we know everything, and that's why we're asking Bob and Jen these questions, but that we do have some idea of what we'd like to see, and we do have a goal in mind. We are mission oriented, and we have a passion about disability and access, and it really translated in that conversation, so that Tim and Becca understand that we are ready to roll up our sleeves and do some work.
Awesome. And along the lines of the our web page, and getting back to the earlier discussion, Mr. Bob Perla, I have not forgotten that you are one of the gurus as far as communications and web access. So I'll be in communication with you, Bob, regarding that piece. What do you say?
Yeah, the site is not compliant, and actually, the federal government is cracking down on government websites that are not in compliance. And there's a heavy fine if they find out that you're not in compliance. I'm talking thousands of dollars. So I looked at the website briefly, and it's an easy fix. It's just time consuming. And basically, it's just going in and added some tags that so that when screen readers, people who are visually impaired or have hearing problems go to the website, they use screen readers. And by adding some codes to the site, when the screen reader goes across a certain page or a certain link or a certain picture or graphic or documentation, the screen reader would be able to read it out to them, making the site accessible to them. And right now the site is not. I don't know who administers the site and who designed it, but I would be willing to work with them to get it in compliance. And,
Awesome.
And like I said, it's an easy fix. It's just very time consuming.
Let me ask you this, Bob. How much time, and you probably don't know what costs would be incurred, but you're mentioning that the main issue, as I understand it, is like one issue regarding that screen reader, which would hugely enhance the readability and thus the compliance of our town website. How many hours, how many days? I mean, how many people or resources are you talking about? And maybe if you know how much money.
To make it compliant, is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
It's really hard to tell until I actually get into it, but I would think we're talking maybe at least 4 or 5 weeks.
Okay.
And there are different levels of compliancy. We don't have to go to the extreme. Is levels 1, 2, and 3. And really all we need to do is make it a level 1 right now.
Okay.
Based on what I see that's on the website, that would make us compliant. When you get into level 2, that's when you have videos, audio sounds and stuff on websites. Then you have to do a level 2 compliancy. And when you get to a level 3, that's more complicated. That is where people can go online and fill out forms online. And so that would be a level 3. But my understanding, what I feel right now, and I could be wrong, is we only have to be a level 1 compliant.
Okay.
And basically what that is if somebody moves their computer mouse over a link, their screen reader would read it out loud to them. Okay, and give them instructions on how to access what they're looking for.
Okay.
And right now the site doesn't do that. I don't know how many people in the Grafton area are handicapped that visit the site. Maybe that's something we should try to look into.
Maybe more would use it if it was more accessible too.
Right. If you build it, they will come.
Right.
All right.
And the other piece too, we have to remember in this remote world now, because this is starting to become an issue now, is that we have Zoom fatigue, eye fatigue. People don't want to read as much. They want to listen more if they possibly can, because all they do is sit and read screens all day. And the migraines are going up, back pain, neck pain, all the stress. So we just installed something called Bumblebee, and it allows you to put a blue tint on whatever you're reading to reduce eye fatigue.
Oh.
Yeah. And then the other thing is a lot of a lot of folks are upgrading now to Microsoft 365, which has even better accessibility features built in. So I'd be curious to know what the town is, if they're upgrading anytime soon, any of their networks. So just some ideas.
All right. Either Bob, myself, you, when's the next time you had planned on, or was scheduled to talk to Tim or Becca?
We don't have a schedule yet. I assume we'll wait till after June 18th when school's done for Shrewsbury Public.
Okay, I know you and Daryl have Zoom fatigue, so I'm cautiously optimistic that, you know, the public can look forward to at some point during 2020, us being level 1 compliant.
Well, what I could do is, if it's acceptable to the commission, is I can go through the site and generate a report on what is needed to make it compliance for level 1.
All right.
And then that would give us a better idea of how long it would take and what the cost would be to do that. You know, I don't know who manages this site, but if they were willing to give me access to the site, I could do it from my house without any problem, and it wouldn't cost the town anything. I would just do it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that could, I could touch base with, you know, Tim or Becca. I'm trying not to have too many people bombard them, you know, within the committee, but I could touch base with them and ask what would be needed for you to have access. And you seem like a trustworthy guy. I know your background is, if I'm not mistaken, you did communications for a Defense Department?
That's correct.
All right, including
Over
websites.
25 years.
Awesome. So you're not only a go-to guy, but you can be trusted.
And I did a lot of online education websites for the government, you know, and I did the Blue Angels website. I did the Navy educational online website. So it's not something that is new to me. It's
Awesome.
something that I think we could do fairly quickly.
Okay.
On a level 1 compliancy. And then later on, if we want to update it to one of the other levels, that would be easy to do.
All right.
Basically, right now, when we do a level 1, it just allows screen readers to read the text, any text information on the site. It would be read out loud to them. And any documents that are on the site, or there's a link to a document, it would tell them how to access that document. They wouldn't read the document, but it would tell them, you know, where to go to access it.
Okay. Awesome. I mean, I don't mind. I mean, you know, I've already been in touch with Tim and Becca regarding, you know, other items. What I would do is simply just as chair, with everyone's agreement, just shoot a quick email off with an intro saying that you're requesting this. I'll CC you on it. You know, giving some background and then requesting what would be needed to allow you remote access to, you know, address or identify those deficiencies so we can make a quick fix and do something tangible on the quick. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, and I have all the programs and software here at my house because I design websites for other organizations and stuff on a volunteer basis. So I'm ready to go once they give me the administrative information that I need to log on and start doing the updates.
All right. You know what I'll do after our meeting ends, I'll shoot them off an email and CC you on that. Just making the quick intro. And then, you know, you can roll from there, hoping that they'll grant you some type of administrative access to this. Any other comments regarding the accessibility and the website that Christy had touched upon? All right, new business. Any new, that's just a placeholder. Any comments on a future agenda item that is pressing or you can think of right now?
We had discussed earlier, adding some things when we were talking to Jed.
Okay.
We could add that perhaps. And the other thing is are we talking about having some workshop meetings? I'd like to get some of those on the calendar if we're gonna do them.
Right. And the thing is that right now, what I can do is I could shoot off an email to see what times are best. Being mindful of not just, Christy and Daryl's Zoom fatigue, but everyone else's. I'm certainly very mindful of the need for workshop meetings to sort of hopefully prevent regular meetings from going on and on, while at the same time being mindful that this has been a very, very busy mental fatigue time regarding online for people. And I would probably be looking more at maybe sometime in the summer.
That's fine. Just so long as we have some kind of a, I think we had discussed previously that the short range, we were going to have a couple of workshop meetings in the hopes that things would level off later on once we've,
Right. And I guess we can play it by ear. I don't mean to sound like I'm shutting you down on that idea, Missy. I just wanted to be mindful the more that people are talking to me, even tonight, both Christy and Daryl, about on their day-to-day, it's Zoom all day long. And that having one more meeting before the school year ends it could be a little bit taxing,
Is it?
I hear that because I got 5 kids at home who are doing Zoom meetings and.
Yeah. So count you among the fatigued. I just don't want to burn people out.
I just want to make sure that we don't stop working as efficiently we have.
No. Now that we have the Zoom going on, I'm a little bit more familiar with it. I think that we'll just, we won't lose momentum again.
Okay.
Any other new business? All right. So we have our next meeting already in place for the 18th, which is Thursday at 6:30. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion.
All right,
Okay,
who was
hold
that?
on. Okay, Melissa. I have
Melissa,
to write this down. Okay,
right.
Missy, a motion to adjourn.
do I have a second?
I will second.
All right, Catherine, motion to adjourn has been seconded by roll call. Motion to adjourn, Bob Perla,
Yes.
Catherine,
Yes.
Missy,
Yes.
Christy,
Yes.
Roger, I declare the motion carried. This meeting is adjourned at 8:50 p.m.